Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're tackling a topic that is really close to my heart and one that could potentially change your life or the life of someone you know. We're talking about lupus, an autoimmune disease that affects millions of people worldwide. Lupus is tricky because its symptoms can mimic so many other conditions, and sometimes they show up in ways that are easy to ignore or chalk up to something else. But the earlier you spot the warning signs, the better the chance you have of managing the disease and living a full, healthy life. So, whether you're here because you've noticed some of these symptoms in your own body, or you're just curious about how to spot lupus early, stick around because we're going to break down the early warning signs and what you should do if you think something's wrong. And before we dive in, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an important update on health and wellness topics. Let's jump in. First, let's start with a little bit of background on lupus so we're all on the same page. Lupus is an autoimmune disease where your body's immune system attacks its own tissues and organs. This can cause inflammation and damage in a variety of places like your skin, joints, kidneys, and even your heart. While doctors are still figuring out exactly what causes lupus, we know that it's more common in women, particularly women of color, and it typically develops between the ages of 15 and 45. The tricky part is that lupus can look so different from person to person. It's often called the disease with 1,000 faces because the symptoms can vary widely. This is why it's so important to pay attention to your body and learn the signs early on. Let's kick things off with a symptom that many of us are familiar with: fatigue. But we're talking about a different level of tiredness here. We all feel worn out after a long day, right? But lupus-related fatigue is extreme and unrelenting. It's the kind of exhaustion that doesn't go away after a good night's sleep or even after resting all weekend. Some people describe it as feeling like their body is made of lead, like they just can't get moving no matter how much they sleep. It's not just being sleepy, it's an overwhelming fatigue that can affect your mental clarity too. You might find it hard to focus, remember things, or get through even your simplest tasks. So, if you've been constantly feeling drained or like your energy is just being zapped away even after taking care of yourself, this could be an early sign of lupus. It's also worth noting that this kind of fatigue can be accompanied by a general feeling of malaise or not feeling quite right in your body. Next up, joint pain and swelling. If you've ever experienced joint pain, you know how uncomfortable it can be. But when lupus is involved, this pain can be widespread and inconsistent. You might experience stiffness, swelling, and tenderness, particularly in the wrists, fingers, knees, and ankles. What makes this different from typical joint pain or arthritis is that it often moves around. One day your fingers might ache and the next day it's your knees or elbows that feel stiff and swollen. This migratory joint pain can also be accompanied by redness and heat in the affected areas. For many lupus patients, the pain can get worse in the mornings or after long periods of inactivity. And sometimes, you might even notice that simple tasks like opening a jar or climbing stairs become much harder because of the pain and stiffness. Now let's talk about skin, specifically the classic butterfly rash. This rash is one of the most recognizable signs of lupus, and it appears across the bridge of your nose and both cheeks. It often looks like a butterfly-shaped rash, which is where it gets its name. The rash can be red or purple and it may be flat or raised. In some cases, the skin might even start peeling or flaking. Now, the thing about this rash is that it can be triggered or worsened by sun exposure, which is why many people with lupus find themselves avoiding the sun as much as possible. If you notice any unusual rashes on your face that appear out of nowhere or worsen after being outside, don't ignore them, especially if you also have other symptoms like fatigue or joint pain. Speaking of sun exposure, let's talk about sun sensitivity. People with lupus are often very sensitive to sunlight, which can trigger flares of the disease. This can include the development of rashes, increased pain, or even fever. You might find that even short periods of time in the sun can cause a reaction in your skin, like burning, redness, or a rash. If you notice this happening, It's important to always protect your skin with sunscreen, wear protective clothing and stay in the shade when possible. But here's the thing. Sun sensitivity isn't just about what's visible on the skin. For some, exposure to the sun can also bring on an increase in fatigue or cause other internal flare-ups that can be harder to notice. So, even if you don't have a rash, pay attention to how your body responds after being outside. Another symptom to watch for is hair loss. Many lupus patients notice that their hair begins to thin or shed more than usual, and this can be particularly distressing. The hair loss can happen gradually or suddenly, and you might notice more hair on your pillow, in your brush, or in the shower drain. Lupus-related hair loss tends to be a general thinning, rather than bald patches, and it can sometimes be accompanied by a dry, brittle texture. If you're noticing hair thinning along with other signs of lupus like joint pain or a rash, it's worth taking note of. Now let's talk about something more serious: chest pain and difficulty breathing. When lupus affects the heart and lungs, it can cause inflammation in the lining of the heart, leading to chest pain, discomfort, or even shortness of breath. If you experience sharp chest pain, pressure, or a tightness in your chest, or if you have trouble breathing for no apparent reason, it's essential to seek medical help right away. These symptoms could be a sign of something much more serious, like heart or lung involvement, which requires immediate attention. Lupus can also affect the kidneys, leading to kidney disease in some cases. Early signs of kidney problems include swelling in the legs, ankles, or feet and dark, foamy urine. You might also notice that your urine has a strange odor or becomes difficult to pass. If you notice any of these signs, it's crucial to see a doctor right away. Lupus-related kidney issues can progress without you realizing it, so early intervention is key. So to sum it all up, lupus can show up in many different ways, and recognizing the early warning signs can make all the difference in how it's managed. If you've been experiencing any of these symptoms, or if you know someone who is, it's important to consult with a doctor who can help you navigate a potential diagnosis. Remember, these signs don't necessarily mean you have lupus. There are a lot of conditions that cause similar symptoms. But if you notice several of these warning signs together, it's worth getting checked out sooner rather than later. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video.